Hello, Internet, and welcome to this month's Manga of the Month. It is fairly late around here, so this will be a little bit quiet of a video. It's 11:30 p.m. right now, and these videos, as we saw from last month, went about an hour. I want this one to be closer to like 45 minutes to half an hour. In all honesty, I don't want to be as long as last month's. But yeah, we are a few days late. I've just been busy. I've been getting this set up. I've been really working hard at this to have a bit more detail or a bit more focused notes than I did last month, where I churned it all out in a day. But yeah, tonight we're handling it all for July's chapters. So yeah, let's jump right on in to School Live. Chapter 64 is the first thing we're covering today. Oh, right. And as I mentioned last month, all of when I start each video, we mentioned in the description what the timestamp is. So yeah, chapter 64. We open with the girls just hanging out in the RV as Miki tries to pass off her not wanting to eat as much as dieting. Instead, she's like actually thinking about their need to ration due to the fact they don't only have so much food and they don't know when they'll get more. As Alzoi, who is always the logistician, is that a word? Logical person, just cuts right through with like, yeah, we need to ration. No ifs, ands, ors about it. It's just, we need to ration or we're gonna run out of food. Even if later on we do see her take down that same worldview, which I also is an interesting take that we don't really see a lot of, that if we're in a stressful situation and we don't eat, we're going to be hungry and that'll like bring us down, which is interesting, even if it doesn't. I feel like the author doesn't quite make it seem reasonable that she would express both worldviews in such a short amount of time. But I do really like that's something I never really thought about. The whole not eating would make them not be at the top of their game for whatever comes up in the next chapter or in the next several chapters, because I don't know how long we're staying at this gas station. But yeah, that was a really like well thought out argument. And then we see before that, going back to before they reach the gas station, I really like Yuki is slowly almost in untellable. Fuck, I'm really bad with words tonight because it's super late. Like very gradually, almost to the point where it's impossible to really witness it happening. She has very slowly become a really competent person. She's like the first one to notice that the helicopters are coming. They need to stop the car or the RV so that Randall doesn't notice them. That was a really like good move on Yuki. That was like a really smart thing. So mad props to Yuki this month. And then going back to the gas station, Aozoi and Miki have this great conversation on how to cope with the apocalypse. As Aozoi's like, my method won't help you, and Miki's like, tell me it anyway. And she's like, don't give a shit about anything. And Miki, to her infinite credit, is like, you're right. That won't do anything for me. I care. And I love her for that. And I really love this scene for just, showing these two very fleshed out characters just existing. And it was great. And then, Miki is definitely changed by that conversation. She pays a lot more attention to Yuki and tries to find ways to take Yuki's worldview into her own life and gives up dieting. And then the next morning, Yuki gets a mysterious message that we don't know who it's from. I don't know who it would be from. Maybe it's the RPA calling again. But we don't know. We'll have to wait until the next chapter should get translated really any day now. Maybe it's already out. I've not checked in the past couple of days. Let me see. Checking the subreddits. No, I don't think it is. Alright. Anyway. So all in all, this was a really, really fun chapter. It was, not gonna lie, there was not a whole lot of plot progression. But what we did not get in plot progression, the chapter made up for in some great character work, as I mentioned, with Miki and Aozoi. So, no complaints from me there. But we will see if that is enough to become this month's manga of the month. So, moving right along into Eden Zero, chapters 2 through 6. We have 5 chapters of Eden Zero because it came out right in time for it to get that extra 5th chapter on the 31st. So the first thing we see, so this is going to be a much longer section than School Live because, you know. So the first thing we see is just the sheer scale of Mother. Even before we realize that it's Mother, it's just like, holy fuck. We see like the dragon that was, a few times larger than the Aqua Wing is only around this big on Mother, which is she's incomprehensibly large, which makes you really interested in like what she's going to do for the plot. And then, so y'all know I'm not a big fan of fan service, and so all the like the scene where like Shiki's like looking at her BQ video and like tries to look up her skirts, not a big fan. Yeah, not a whole lot to say about that. That being said, there's a line there where Rebecca. So we've seen like Rebecca in chapter 1, tries to use her like sex appeal to like bump up views, and she tells Shiki, "Too bad the video censors out the angle where you can see my underwear," right? And I can't quite tell if that "too bad" is supposed to be sarcastic or if she actually does want to use that to bump up views, because we have seen her with that mindset in the past. And if so, like I like the idea of her like owning her sexuality. That's not something we see a lot of in shonen manga. Female characters who are like comfortable with that. But yeah, that's just something that's interesting. So I really do love all of Shiki's super like earnest attempts at friendship. Try to be friends with like everyone. It's super cute. I super love it. Yeah, that's like he does it. When he first arrives in Blue Garden, when he goes to Meteor Torch. I forget if he does it on Noma too, but like he does it a lot throughout the chapters this month. And so during my review for chapter 2, I mentioned I wasn't quite sure how I feel about scattering bits and pieces of the Rebecca Happy backstory throughout the chapter. In retrospect, I love it. It's never long enough to really break up the tension of like the actual conflict. It's never more than a page at a time. If they like shoved it all into the scene where he becomes a robot, it would have like dragged on, I think. Especially because a lot of it like really quick vignettes. Them walking down the street together, having like a 5-second conversation. And it just works better being like piece by piece throughout the chapter, rather than all showing up at once. So I do think that was a good idea. Speaking of the action, that's a really fun chase. When Shiki's like chasing the henchman, it's a really cool sequence that's a lot of fun. But on things that aren't quite as fun, the boss of the guy with like the Stein screws in his head, he's pretty boring. Let's be honest. He's just kind of there. They needed the villain, so he gets the job done, but he's not a whole lot. Yeah, he's just kind of there. On to more positive things though. Mashima, I've said it before, and I'll say it several times before this series is over. Mashima is great at making like tragic backstories. Mashima has certain things that he's really good at, and backstories are definitely one of them. Like we all shot all over the Eileen fight by the end, but don't forget, people were calling like the Eileen backstory leading up to that fight some of the best shit in Fairy Tail. So like Mashima's phenomenal backstories, and we definitely see that with the Happy and Rebecca backstory. It's really good. It's really sweet. Doesn't drag on too long. It's just like gives us everything we need. It's just really good. It's a great tearjerker. And then, as I mentioned in my last review for Eden Zero, I really love like gravity power for a main character is really interesting. Normally main characters have like Natsu's fire power or like generally gravity, like fire, or I don't know, what would you call Naruto's power? Clone making? I don't know. Gravity's kind of a weird thing for a protagonist to have, and I really dig it. Like, it's a great idea, and the different ways that Shiki uses his gravity power, whether in, falling sideways to get away from Sabir, and I think he does it again when he's getting away from the boss. It's all some really great shit. When he uses when he coalesces his gravity, he makes the gravity on his fist super strong to crush Sabir's fist. It's awesome, great shit, and I really dig it. Speaking of great shit, the Robo Happy twist is just so funny. It's just something about it is so fucking ridiculous in its sheer audacity, and I just have to appreciate it for that. It's so good. Yeah. And then after Happy reveals himself to be a robot, let's get on my charger so it doesn't flip over. So after Happy reveals himself to be a robot, and then Rebecca goes ham on the guys with the ether blasters, we see Shiki helping her out without becoming the one who saves the day or anything, which is a really nice touch. Shiki gives her some altitude on the enemies without actually being the one to fight them, and it's a great little bit of teamwork. And I really hope Shiki and Rebecca just being a great team, really carries over throughout the rest of the series. I really like that idea. And hopefully it doesn't just become the Shiki show, that would not be really great. I really like the idea of, characters bouncing their powers off each other is a really great thing in shonen that we don't really see enough of. And hopefully as the cast gets larger, that becomes a more and more common thing. And then, yeah, so after the fight's over, we see, well, first off, we see that, fuck, what I'm looking for. So we get a bit of context. It's a little bit, maybe a little bit forced, I guess. Mashima adding context this way. Of Shiki using the knowledge of Robo Happy to kind of explain why Rebecca believed that humans and robots could be friends back on Granbell. And maybe it would have been better if Mashima hadn't gone out and shown us the panel of that scene in Chapter 1. But it's still a really nice thing to see. We definitely getting a better glimpse of her character. And then they're going to meteor torch and the chapter ends not before we see Elsie. And I have some comments on Elsie's design based on something a commenter said, I think, in Chapter 2 or 3. I forget who it was. If it was you, please feel free to if you're watching this, please feel free to take credit for it. But while Elsie's design might be kind of lazy, it's just Urza with an eye patch, I do really like the idea that it's more of kind of like how Jalal and Seekheart were from Fairy Tail and Ravemaster than just plain laziness. She's kind of the carryover. Because, Jalal had Seagrain, who was his, twin/mind projection. It was a really weird twist that I really liked. And Seagrain and Seekheart's names were so similar. And then we have Urza Scarlet and Elsie Crimson, who have very similar designs and very similar names. So I can definitely see that being what Mashima was trying to go for there. And I hope it is. Alright. So moving on to Chapter 3. I spent 8 minutes on that one chapter. But yeah, so we get a little bit of Rebecca and Claris's friendship, and I really hope we see more of that as the series goes on. I hope Claris doesn't just... I hope she's more of an early Mira Jane, where Mira actively acted in the plot, than a later Mira Jane, where she just kind of hung back most of the time. Because early Mira Jane was badass, fucking going Satan Soul on Freed, some badass shit in early Fairy Tail. And as it went on, she just stopped being as prevalent of a character, which I felt was not exactly the best decision. But it's what happened, so whatever. And I hope Claris, I don't think she's just going to be Mira Jane, where she's secretly, an ex-badass. But I hope she's, relevant in a way that Mira kind of stopped being. Sorry if you're a big Mira fan. That was kind of my thoughts on Mira. So then we have Shiki's reveal that he feels like he's met Mother. And that definitely lends... there's already plenty of mystery to his character, what with the Demon King saying that, he's going to go out and change the universe. How he just kind of, popped up on Granbell where there were no humans for 100 years. There's a lot of mystery to him. And I hope it's not Mother is actually Shiki's mom. That would be a really dumb... This is a basic twist, and I'm not really feeling it. But, yeah. that it just lends a greater air of mystery to his character. So then we're introduced to Lavilla Christie, who I'm still kind of having some second thoughts on. I'm still not entirely sure whether or not I like her. I'm not. There's a lot of her we'll have to wait and see. I hope she's not just like what Juvia was to Gray to Shiki, especially because like Juvia did eventually develop to be more than just a stalker. But right now, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Lavilla. And then we have the scene in the restaurant as Shiki and Rebecca are talking about guilds. And even if, straight up calling out the fact that these guilds are different than fairy tale guilds is maybe a little on the nose, I do like the idea. Like, when we all first heard guilds were in Eden Zero, I think all of us at some point in at some part of our consciousness were like, oh boy, here we go again. It's just going to be fairy tale in space. Even if I am more than down for fairy tale in space, personally, as a longtime fairy tale fan. But I do really like the fact they definitely stress the fact that these are not the same concepts. They do straight up bring out Shiki's incorrect idea of a guild wasn't fairy tale, and this is a much less personal kind of deal. And I like that idea. I'm not entirely sure how it will do to having a good supporting cast. But yeah. Then we have Elsie, who they get their goal to go see Mother, but they need the ship, so they head to Noma, and then Elsie walks in, just strolls into Meteor Torch, which, as I'm pretty sure I mentioned in Chapter 3, raises a bunch of questions about what a pirate is in this world. Because she, walks in. No fear of the law. Maybe she's just so powerful that the law can't do anything to her. I don't know. But she has no concern about her own welfare as she walks in there. So I'm not entirely sure what exactly pirates are in this world. Are they the same things we think of pirates? If not, it's going to get really confusing as we go further down the line. But yeah, I don't know. So anyway, Rebecca, Happy, Shiki, they all go down to Noma. And I really like Rebecca and Happy just coming up with ridiculous video ideas. The idea of a YouTuber shonen manga protagonist is so inherently ridiculous that I really like it being played up. They are video creators, and they want to make funny content. And that's just a really funny thing to me. So yeah. Then they land on Noma, and the Earth Ether Crystals, not Easter Crystals, the Earth Ether Crystals, super cool idea. I really like the idea of, pillars just raining down from the sky, and it's built up this entire underground society to be able to live on this planet. It's just really good shit all around with the Ether Crystals. So I really like that. I also really liked, there's this air of, foreboding, of, for creepiness as they go into Wise's lab before they meet the young Wise. And it's just really good to, amp up the tension right there. It just works really well. And then we have, of course, the infamous 20,000 years later fast forward. I still don't know what to do with that. Even with Zhao Mei's comments in Chapter 5 about how time doesn't really mean much, I'm not entirely sure what to take of that, especially because in this arc, it definitely seems to mean a lot. They're freaking out about being 50 years in the past. I don't know. Zhao Mei is a mystery, as is the 20,000 years later thing. Time doesn't really mean much. I don't really know where to go with that. Yeah, that's just kind of a weird thing. But anyway, we get right back into the action there with this really quick fight in the lab. It's still a lot of fun. Again, I love the gravity powers. Shiki, jumping onto the roof and, X-raying the guy he's fighting. It's a cool thing. It's real fast. It just gets done real fast. It's kind of fun. And then when the guy mentions Sabir, right before they leave the lab, Rebecca says Sabir's name as if she knows him. Maybe he ends up being a famous crime lord 50 years ago, and so she knows him by reputation, and it's kind of the first hint that they're in the past. Or it's just, I don't know, it's a weird thing. She's wondering what the name means. I don't know. But of things I do know, the slow reveal when they're kind of in the restaurant-looking thing, as they slowly realize they've gone back in time from the not connecting to the net to seeing the news article to, the old car models to eventually seeing the date. It just works really well. The tension ramps up and up and up, and it's just a good read right there. It's really great. And then we reach the end of the chapter. So Sabir pops up and is like, "You're with that thief, Wise." And then we cut to Wise holding the briefcase and they're like, "I'll never let them have this." Which is really weird, because in Chapter 6, we find out that Wise believes that there's just money in the briefcase. And the desperation he holds on to it makes it seem like it's more important than just cash. And sure, it turns out to be more than just cash. But Wise supposedly does not know that yet, which makes his reaction there a little odd. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the last chapter of the month. My promises of this video would be like half an hour to 45 minutes seem to be proven wrong, as we're already over 20 minutes in. But anyway, moving right along. So the more I read Chapter 6, I mentioned this in the video, the more Back to the Future vibes I get from it. Like, I mentioned that Wise's whole character felt very much like Doc Brown in the first Back to the Future, with the characters like having to tell him about his future self. But also the whole "don't interact with the past" mantra is very Back to the Future, as opposed to a more like Doctor Who style mantra of like, we're already in the past, so our actions are the past. It's very like, if you interact with the past, shit's gonna get weird, because we weren't here originally, which is interesting. Even if like, in my opinion, the Doctor Who model does make a lot more sense, because like, if you're in the past, you were in the past. That's how time works. So yeah. Then Shiki and Sabir fight, and as I said before, I really love Shiki's gravity powers. They're so cool. They're just so interesting. You don't see things like that in manga, and I love it. And then they eventually run away from Sabir, and they find Wise at a bar. And I do like normally manga might have that be like a coincidence that, oh, they happen to go to the same bar that Wise went to or something like that. But I like that, it went back to something Wise told Rebecca in the past. I found that to be a really interesting, choice to go with there. I just really like that. And then, there's a bit of shenanigans as the gang tries to find out what's in Wise's briefcase. And out pops a little maid robot calling Wise master and complaining about being handled roughly. I have a lot of dislike for that master-maid trope, so I'm not exactly optimistic about the little robot. But we'll have to wait and see where we go with that. Because that's really where the last chapter ended. You'll have to wait until around Monday or Tuesday to find out where we go from here. I'm going to move my feet because I'm getting tired of sitting like this because I've been at it for 20 minutes. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of Eden Zero chapters 2 through 6. Meaning we are moving right along to the ending of Sui Ishida's horror action thing masterpiece, Tokyo Ghoul Re Chapter 179. And if only this ending was as much of a masterpiece as the rest of the series could be, because after having a month to think about it, I decided I'm not the biggest fan of this ending. I don't think it worked out very well. There were things that felt good, but the more I thought about it, the more like, this just isn't Tokyo Ghoul. I know there was a commenter on my original video for that, about like, oh, it mirrors the original series tragedy. And, like, it does. But I'm still not sure that was exactly a great move, given that nowhere else in the series did it seem to be... Like, Tokyo Ghoul's original ending felt like the natural culmination of everything that came before. Sure, there were some things that weren't really answered, like Kano and Rize. But it just kind of feels off, I guess. All the tragedy of and part 2 kept the tragedy up until the end of 178 when it curveballed into 179's happy ending. But anyway, I still thought there was a lot of good to come from this, especially I'll get into it in a little bit. But yeah, so getting into the chapter itself, I'm just not the biggest fan of not letting us see the aftermath of the Dragon War. I feel like it definitely, especially with not seeing Ayato rescue Kaneki, I feel like it was just a weird thing not to show. I don't know, just felt wrong. I feel like there should have been, 5 or 10 more chapters. Just in general, it just should have gone on a little bit longer. Though, as a way to shoehorn as much information into the chapter as possible, they do these documentary-style paragraphs for every, like how the end credits of the documentary has like this character lived a long and happy life, that kind of deal. They do that for like just about every character in the series except Akira and Amon, who I'm still mad about. Uh, and like while it's great to see everyone's information in like a short period of time, it still just kind of makes it seem a little impersonal. Like we don't find it out naturally; it has to be like narrated to us, and I don't really dig that. Um, yeah, so it seems a little impersonal. Another complaint: the fact that there are still CCGs outside of Tokyo feels weird. Like the Tokyo ghouls are at peace, and then ex CCG members are going out to kill more ghouls. How are the ghouls okay with this? Tokyo creates the TSC, and that works well, but the rest of it just doesn't quite seem logical. Like, what? They just don't care that Kuromoto and Mutsuki and Face Hair Girl are out still slaying ghouls, or are the other CCGs more reformed where they're only attacking evil ghouls? I guess that would work, but they don't really explain that, so it doesn't quite work. I'm also not the biggest fan. There's a reveal where one of Urie's subordinates mentions that there was an earlier occurrence that was like the Dragon War that gave rise to the original ghoul species. And that just kind of seems unnecessary. I didn't need that. It just adds more questions. It kind of highlights the fact that we know so little about the original One-Eyed King. Like, was that the original Dragon War? Did he give rise to dragons, but to ghouls? But it seems like the original One-Eyed King was after that. So the whole thing is just kind of a whole bunch of questions that are never going to get answered. So I'm not a big fan of that. Now, on to things I'm actually a fan of. I love the scene with Haru and Urie. I'm so happy that at least one Shirazu got a happy ending, and at least Ginshi's remains were eventually found and given a proper burial. That was really good. I'm just like I do crap on this chapter a lot for the sheer amount of happy endings, but the Shirazus deserved it. The Shirazus deserved it, and so did fucking Shinohara. Oh my god, I'm so emotional over the fucking Shinohara scene. It was so good. Just Shinohara waking up and Juzo like breaking down crying. That's some of the best shit in all of Tokyo Ghoul. Oh my god, I love that's it's the ghouls throwing their masks off and Shinohara waking up. That's what it is. Maybe even reversed. I don't know. Shinohara deserves the world. Juzo deserves the world. May they live happily ever after. But I still think that just the sheer number of happy endings, just not everyone needed the happy ending. Like, Madam A did not need to become a farmer. What the fuck? Why? Why? Why was that in there? What? I can't figure it out. It's so weird. It is so weird. It's just a strange occurrence. It doesn't really need to be there. Yeah. But anyway, so a commenter told me that Akira and Amon, as I mentioned, Akira and Amon do show up on Sato's page. The page where like Takizawa goes out and is fighting evil ghouls. But I still wish we had seen something about what happened to them. We just see like their silhouettes. That's not enough. That is not enough, Ishida. Ugh. Okay. More things I don't like. Kuroiwa should not have survived. Kuroiwa was I had forgotten about this when I read the finale, but he was stabbed in the neck by Nimura through the windpipe. Furuta killed him. He was dead. Dead as a doornail dead. There is no coming back from dead as a doornail dead. And yet, somehow, he got off with a hospital stay. I don't know. I don't fucking know. It's just, why? How? It's so unnecessary. That's the kind of thing that makes me really upset about how just overwhelmingly happy this is. Like, I love happy endings. You saw me defend the shit out of the end of Fairy Tail. I'm going to continue defending Fairy Tail when we get to 100 Years Quest. But why? Why? Why is Kuroiwa still alive? I mean, even with Makarov coming back, at least there was some magical explanation bullshit. Here, Kuroiwa gets stabbed in the neck. There is no reason, there is nothing in the series to suggest he can survive getting stabbed in the neck. And yet he does. I got no explanation for it. But anyway. I like getting to see everyone interact with Kaneki's daughter. It's real cute, Ishika's adorable, and I wish her a happy life. And then that's the end of the series. Ghoul ends. And I want to like it more than I do. And I love seeing characters like people who deserve the world. People like Nishio and Kimi. People like Toka, Kaneki, Ishika, Hide, the Qs, the first gen Qs. Again, I give zero fucks with the second gen Qs. There was no foundational work for their story, which is why their whole thing with Shinsanpe kind of fell apart. But like, you gotta give me, it's just too unbelievably sweet. It's almost, I want to say parodic for how happy this whole thing is. This was not a happy series, and then all of a sudden, everyone gets a fucking happy ending. It's weird. Like, I'm happy for them, but it doesn't really feel like Ghoul. So yeah, that's kind of my final thoughts on Ghoul. And I really wish I had better thoughts on Ghoul. But yeah, it's just the ending. Honestly, the last few, probably the final volume as a whole, just kind of deals with a lot of being rushed and problems in the end. But yeah. I mean, we never really got anything from Kaneki aging real fast. That just kind of got dropped. But yeah, I'm going to leave it off there, because we have several more series to discuss, starting with, first and foremost, Fire Brigade of Flames. Chapters 133 through 135. So, yeah. Forget everything I've been talking about Ghoul, jump straight into Fire Brigade. So it's kind of incredible. So we open 133 with Kurono and Nataku squaring off to fight. And it's kind of incredible how just one line from Nataku makes him go, he has this, like, I don't want to fight or something. And when we first see him at the end of, I think it's 130, he's this creepy, like, horror character. Especially, like, the eyes certainly help. And, I was like, oh, this guy's going to be a super, like, villain guy. And just that one line, turns him from, like, creepy demon child into the scared little boy who I just want to hug. Nataku needs a fucking hug. Let's be honest. Nataku needs the world. And I love him already, and I hope he becomes a hero and, like, helps out, joins the 8th Brigade. I just want more Nataku. I love him so much. I do want to know more about Nataku's past with Rekka, because what we've gotten from Nataku, it seemed like he was just, like, given the bug by Rekka almost by chance. That was kind of my impression. He was like, when Rekka was going on like a bug rampage. It's been a while since I read the first Brigade arc, so I'm not entirely sure what was going on. But that was kind of the vibe I got, and just the fact that like he seems to know Rekka pretty well is just a little bit not exactly what I was expecting, I guess. Yeah. So the scientists are just so fucking awful. They're like, oh, if Nataku dies, well, at least you've gotten some good data. God, they're the worst. But there are some villains here I really do like. Kurono is a cool type of villain. Like, he's not what we really see so much. We'll have, like, there's, an honorable villain. People like, what's his face? Mifune from Soul Eater kind of fit that trope. The one who, like, won't attack a weak enemy. And there are, like, trickster villains who, like, try to seem honorable and then backstab you, like, Cars from Battle Tendency. And then Kurono is just so starkly opposed. Like, there are very few villains who are just like, I love fighting the weak. Like, that's a cool concept for a villain. I'm really digging. He's, like, super creepy and super evil, but I'm really digging him. And I doubt Kurono will really go on past this arc. He seems very much like an arc villain to me. Especially given that I'm not entirely sure how in League Haijima is with the White Hoods, who have, like, no mention this month. But, I highly doubt he'll go on past this arc. But I'm really enjoying him while he's here. And so, with that, Victor and Shinra arrive at Haijima, and there is no question, no one is even doubting that, like, there's not even really a charade to be kept for the most part on whether or not Victor and Shinra are going to be like let go. Everyone, like the security guards are like, yeah, we're going to get them. The scientists, like Shinra straight up accused the scientist, you're abusing children, and I'm going to put a stop to you. And the scientists are like, all right, come have a look. I mean, sure, the scientists are like trying to hide the fact, but he doesn't do it very well because Shinra realizes it in the heartbeat. He hears Nataku on the Adora link. But there's a really interesting dynamic where everyone is so honest with each other this arc, which it really was leading up to, this sense that, like, everyone was going to be trying to, like, double cross each other, and it's kind of refreshing that everyone is just on the same page. It's just kind of weird. Like, yeah, no one is hiding from anyone. And I like it. I dig that. So then Shinra and Kurono meet, and they start having a little, like, sparring match. And the way Kurono talks to Shinra, I forget exactly what it is about it, but, we see a little bit of their past in 133. This was, like, Kurono's face pressed up against the window, glaring at Shinra. And this little conversation makes it seem like there's a lot more to it than that. I'm not entirely sure what all there is, but they seem to like, Kurono seems to recognize him a bit more intimately than just gazing at each other through a window. So I'm curious if we're going to get more of that as the arc goes on. But then we get to 135, which is just the actual fight, and dear God, is it cool. Like, Kurono's smoke powers are great through both, like, sensory, and they can condense to form weapons. It's cool. And the fight's just really fun. It's just a kick-ass fight. I really dig it. And then the fight, and then they try to stop the fight, and then Kurono blocks the vision of the scientists, and then Nataku activates the Dora Burst to be continued. 136 is MIA. Don't know when that's going to get, if that's already out, or if the series on like a short hiatus or something, but has not been translated. It's been a few weeks since then. When was that? The mid-July? We're now, a few days into August, so it's been a while. It should be out eventually. But anyway, I'll be looking forward to that. So these are really a really fun 3 chapters, and I really dig it. I'm really loving this arc. I've been, Fire Brigade's been on a roll since late last year, and it's just not letting up steam. So, congrats Okubo for keeping a series at this level of quality for so long. But that's really all to say about Fire Brigade for this month, meaning we are moving right along into Boruto Chapter 25. So we open up with the Kawaki Garo fight. As I mentioned in my review or my reaction for the chapter, Kawaki's powers look a lot like Wood Style. Especially like when he does a little like extension thing, and then he takes his arm out of the little extension, and it looks like it's like a fallen tree. But I really hope he's not doing Wood Style. That would just, like, we had so much about Wood Style already. I want to see something new. I want it to be, even if it's just like parasites, that'll be a lot more interesting than Wood Style. And then we have Kawaki and Garo fight, and it's a lot of, it's just some good fights. Like, this series Boruto has been really good about having some great kinetic, in-your-face taijutsu fights, and this kind of continues that streak. So I'm really digging it. And it's quick. It does not overstay its welcome. It's not like Ow, which while that was a really good fight, it was like 3 months long. Which is nothing on Butler at the moment, but like, it went on for a while. And then when Konohamaru had this declaration, Boruto goes to help Kawaki, and Konohamaru says, no, this is an S-rank mission, so now the top priority is to protect your lives. And as I was rereading that, I was like, that is so different from how the village used to be. Remember back when the White Fang saved his comrades and the village hated him so much he committed suicide over it? This is not that same place. So, like, props to Naruto for really changing the world on this. Then Garo dies super fast. Like, he's killed by Kawaki in, like, this huge explosion real fast. And honestly, he's not that interesting enough character for me to be upset that he died. I don't really care. He's just kind of there to show how overpowered Kawaki is. But the karma is not too overpowered, and I really like that. Kawaki does a little explosion, and then he passes out, enough for, the Leaf for Team Konohamaru to just like drag his ass back to the lead, which is where we're heading towards next month in 2 weeks. 2 weeks when the chapter comes out. Fuck yes. It's like the 20th, I want to say. Or like probably like the 17th because of how translations work. But anyway, before the chapter ends though, Mitsuki reveals that he is an artificial human, which Boruto and Sarada did not know about. And honestly, every single time Boruto and Sarada learn something new about Mitsuki, whether it be he's Orochimaru's son or now that he's a clone, their reactions are so funny. I just really love that about them. It's a great time. So all in all, the chapter is a good showcase of what Kawaki, or at the very least the Karma, is capable of. And it does give us some fun moments with Team 7, and we see a little bit of what Kara wants out of everything. Kashin Koji says, like, they won't like the world to come, but the world is changing, and the change will be called Kara. And that's just kind of interesting. I'm not sure where we're going with that. That's really everything that happened in this month's Boruto chapter. That was a really short portion of the video, but it was just a fight. It was a fight, and it was a quick, kinetic fight. Not too much to go on. So moving right along into Blue Exorcist 101. So the first thing that happens in this chapter is Rin and Mephisto and Yuri and Shiro all make their way to the asylum, which, as we all know, is just the True Cross Academy. Except it's super cool just how forbidding they make it. It's a building that we know, we love, we've been a part of it for, how long has it been going on? 8 years now? It's something that's kind of familiar, especially to Rin. And, they were able to get away with it when Suguro and Lightning went to the asylum because it was all, like, torn down. And, like, the rundown rundown buildings would look kind of creepy. But there's this sense to it in the drawing. Like, the ceilings are all blacked out. It just looks kind of forbidding when we first get a good look at it. Which really heightens this great tragedy of Yuri falling in love with the asylum. The awful training, the lack of I don't know, I guess real human connection we get. And that also makes the glimpse we get of Yuri 4 years later, when her smile is broken down and she's just hard and, a full asylum devotee. So presumably we have not really gotten a good actual conversation with her. That'll probably come this month. With the 4 years later Yuri. It's just kind of heartbreaking to see her like that, It's just sad. But yeah. Moving on to Shiro, though. Shiro's got some great moments. So, I kind of mentioned in my review that Shiro seemed a lot younger than he did in chapter 100. And I read through that chapter again. It's actually not. It's just because he's taller than Yuri, and the camera is always looking up at him, so he always looks a lot taller. But he's straight up 9 years old in this scene. And I straight up did not notice. When he becomes an X-Flyer, he's 9 years old. And you gotta hand it to his, like, sheer guts. He, like, jumps on the table, grabs Mephisto, and demands, make me an X-Flyer. Like, mad props, Shiro. Gotta love him. But he's also he's really different from the guy we meet in the beginning of the series. He, like, grabs Mephisto and is like, when I become Paladin, I'm gonna, like, rip your fucking throats out. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Shiro. So I really want to know what happens in the next 40 years that makes him from, I want to rip your throats out to, the kind old man making jokes at his sons. Is it just having kids? Is it just, having to raise these two boys? I don't know, but I really want to see it. And then we get, Mephisto takes Rin to find out what exactly the asylum is, and it's all the cover for Section 13. That stuff we all know. And the stuff that I'm pretty sure we did not know is that Section 13 is all for Lucifer, in Mephisto's own words. And that opens up a lot of questions. We also find out that, 40 years, or 36 years ago at this point, Lucifer was a ticking time bomb in a much worse condition than he is in 2011, or whatever year this is set in, 201X, whatever. It's like we know that, the Illuminati and the True Cross are connected in their origins. I forget exactly how. It's been a while since I read that chapter. But like that whole reveal sets up a lot, and I'm really looking forward for 1 or 2 to come out so we can get a lot more answers on that. But all in all, this was just a really great chapter. Like there was, great Yuri moments where she like kind of bonds with the other trainees. There is a great Shiro scene with Mephisto. It was just super high energy. And we're really moving through the flashback super fast. I wish a certain other monthly series we're right about to talk about take notes about that, but that flashback's already over, so I'm not going to talk about that. Even though, as I mentioned last month, I wish we got a lot more of the rest of the cast. Beyond the Snow worked really well at reminding us this was a huge ensemble show and giving every character something to do every chapter. And ever since we've started SSC, that's just gone. It's just flashback all the time. And that's kind of why I hope we move through the flashback real fast, because Blue Exorcist has just a phenomenal ensemble. Whether it be Yukio and Shima with the Illuminati, and we now find out that Toto's daughter is the woman. And then we have whatever's going on with Shiemi and the Grigori Association or whatever. The Suguro is doing stuff with Angel and Lightning. Konokomaru is repairing the Coma Sword, which I doubt is going to be all that interesting, in all honesty. But whatever, that's just something he's doing. It's just, the cast is really great, and I really want to get back to the cast. But the information we're getting is really good, and I'm really digging it. So, that is Blue Exorcist 101, moving right along to Black Butler 142. This was a fucking amazing chapter. It was too short, but, it was fucking amazing. So we start out with this, really great, tense banter between Undertaker and Othello. And it's super tense, and then Othello throws his scythe, and it, lands on the second step. Which, in retrospect, is really funny. But it does kind of kill the mood. I was getting really hyped. And then, Undertaker, and then Othello takes Grell on Undertaker, and they start to clash. And then Sebastian, joins in. And Real Ciel gets this great little line about, Sebastian wants them to leave the manor. And Real Ciel's like, who are you to tell them to leave the manor? You're not a part of this family. And just that whole sequence is really fucking good. And then, right as they're about to get going, Scotland Yard and literally the entire fucking cast shows up. And I feel like, it's kind of a bit of a tension killer again. And I feel like this one works a lot better than Othello's tension killer. Mainly because, we don't have any of the whole, oh no, I can't let anyone know my secret drama. Because, everyone walks in on both CLs together, and that's really nice. And then, the Queen appears, Lizzie Midford, back in action. Cannot wait to see where we go next. So, this was a really short chapter, and again, Black Butler needs to be longer, even if the art is gorgeous every month. I really wish we had better story, or more story to go with the great art. Even if, a step down in art is what it takes to have longer chapters. Even just a School Live length chapter. Doesn't need to be a full 40 pages. That would be really nice. But it was still a stellar chapter, and it was probably the best we've gotten since 129. But yeah, moving on to our last manga of the night is Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, chapters 1 through 3. So this is our 546 through 548 if you're keeping up the original counting, but I will not be. Sorry. So, the first thing we find out is that in Giltena, mages were persecuted 150 years ago or so. I think the year they gave is X640 something, and we're in 792. So, 150 years ago, mages were persecuted, which led to Magia Dragon, which led to the 100 Years Quest, which is about killing the Holy Pentadrakes. I'm kind of curious how all of those are intertwined. I imagine we'll get more detail on that when we actually start meeting the Pentadrakes. But yeah, that was kind of my first thought with the first page. And I just love getting to hang out with old friends again. It feels nice to see the Fairy Tail Guild just exist, I just love them so much. They all have such a special place in my heart, and I really just love them. So just seeing them, even for the little bit we get of the whole guild together, it just kind of reminds me why I love Fairy Tail so much. And also, it's great to see how much the Thunder God tribe has changed since their first appearance. when they fight, there's the guy who comes in who's only interested in power, and I think it's really cool that it's specifically the Thunder God tribe that like kicks him out, because that was them at the beginning of the series. They were only in it for the power. They wanted to remind everyone that Fairy Tail was the greatest guild. And it's great to see how much they've changed. Bixel even does call Ever out on like hypocrisy for how much she's changed. But like it's just nice to see them. It's also cool to see how the war with Alvarez has really made Fairy Tail even more popular than it was. Like everyone is coming to the point where they now have to like filter out recruits, which was something they never did when Lucy joined. That's just a really interesting thing to see. And then Natsu and Gildarts' relationship is super cute. I love that kind of like father-son bond they have. Besides that, Chapter 1 just kind of, we see a little bit more time with Team Natsu when they head to Megia Dragon, where they meet Eleftheria. And then Chapter 2, I really love Natsu and Wendy being able to figure out Eleftheria was human. Even if, like, it's super nice, it would be super obvious for two Dragon Slayers to, like, sniff that out. Oh yeah, he's a human. It's a nice callback to how Acnologia became a dragon. It's just kind of nice to see, even if it is a little weird that they're just an entire continent with dragons that Acnologia just didn't know about. They do say that like the Pentadrakes aren't exactly well known, so I guess that makes sense. But still, it's just kind of weird. So yeah, then Eleftheria. Whew boy. He does that fucking pervy old man routine that I super hate, when he is flitting around the room teleporting and he ends up in Lucy's breasts. That's fun. That's not fun. That was a lie. It's not fun at all. But Fairy Tail will be Fairy Tail. Gotta have your good with your bad. And then we cut back to the guild, where Juvia and Toka are like arguing about their respective crushes. And I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the relationship between Juvia and Toka. It's a bit more, like, at least it's not like a traditional, like, love rival kind of deal. Like, Juvia never thinks she's, like, gunning for Grey, which is great. But I don't know, that just kind of strikes me as a little weird. But I do really like the Toka and Briar mystery is super interesting, both in that it gives Avatar a bit of relevance to the plot that never really had, and just for giving Gajiel something to do. Gajiel and Juvia and Levi, who are also my favorite like B-list Fairy Tail characters, are all going to be doing stuff during this arc, which is nice. It's nice to see that. And then we see, I believe this is it. This is still Chapter 2. We see a flashback between Lucy and Virgo on the boat, as we realize that Aquarius is probably on Giltena. Like, y'all, probably my favorite moment in the entire Fairy Tail manga. I never got to actually, like, review this point. This was, like, years before I started reviewing. Was Lucy breaking Aquarius' key. It's the best scene in the series, hands down. And seeing, even the bit with, like, Aquarius popping up during the fight between Lucy and Brandish was, like, really good. And, that reunion, I really want that reunion. I know people, like, wanted that to be how Fairy Tail ended, with her going out and, like, meeting Aquarius. And it looks like we might be getting that. And I want to see Aquarius so bad. I really want to see Aquarius so bad. Yeah. But anyway, moving on to the rest of Chapter 2. When Eleftheria tells them the mission, he uses the very specific term seal for the Pentadrakes, which I find interesting. Because, like, Acnologia had to kill Acnologia, right? But it kind of reminds me of Kaguya from Naruto, who they couldn't kill Kaguya, so they could only seal Kaguya. Just like they could only seal the Pentadrakes, especially because, as we see in Chapter 3, the Pentadrakes haven't really done anything wrong. They're just, like, a threat. So seal them away before the threat becomes real. I don't know. I'm kind of curious if the word seal means anything. It's the quirk of translation. I don't really know. And then we see these, like, jellyfish monsters in the Valyria region that are so cute. I mean, like, they're just super cute. As is Wendy. I also do love Wendy, like, getting to see Wendy just like Sky Dragons wore them all the way. Wendy's great. And Wendy's also a really great character who has a lot of the best moments in the series, both You know, her fight with Azelle was great. Her fight with Demaria was great. I love Wendy. Yeah, but that's not really important in this chapter. So we see in one of the flashbacks to the Syria conversation, which I'm not entirely sure how much I like, interspersing their travels with more flashbacks. It's kind of weird. But Ursa seems to forget that Aknologia's defeat was a team effort. Because she's like, you're talking to the guy referring to Natsu, who defeated Aknologia. That just doesn't really jive well with me. Like the entire continent came together to beat Aknologia. It was not just Natsu. All the Dragon Slayers together, you know, equipped their Dragon Slaying magic onto Natsu in order to beat Aknologia. It's one of the best parts of the ending. So I'm not really a big fan on Urza diminishing that. But I don't know. That's just a thing. Something I do love, I love Detective Gagio. You know, kind of a similar role to Aedolas Gagio, who was, an investigative reporter, I think? But Aedolas Gagio was the best part of the Aedolas arc, even if he was anime only. And so seeing Gagio kind of fill the role that Aedolas Gagio filled in the Toka mystery, I'm digging. I love his outfit, too. Gagio's always the best. And then we cut back, and the gang is at Elmina, where they will get some information on the first of the 5 Pentadrakes, Mercphobia, and we see 2 characters that look like they were ripped straight out of World Trigger. Like, they look like neighbors. They look like they're from Octocrador. What the fuck? Like, straight up, they look like neighbors. Tell me they did. Someone who has seen World Trigger, tell me those 2 do not look like neighbors. Look, this is not like the monstrous neighbors, like the human neighbors. They really do. But I'm curious what's up with them. There's the very specific fact that they don't, like, the horned one says something about Sea God instead of saying Mercphobia, which kind of makes me curious if there's a different Sea God. It's just Mashima kind of like trolling us. But I don't know. All in all, these are a very introductory 3 chapters. You know, we get a little bit of setup both into the Toka mystery and to the 100 Years Quest, but they're mostly just setting up that. But I'm still really excited to see what comes next. So, now, the moment you have all been waiting for, I hope, thankfully, because my voice is right about to give out, is the manga of the month. What manga did I think was the best this month? That's what we're all here for. It's what we all sat through an hour of a video for. Sorry about that. I wanted this to be shorter, but it was not. And that manga is, drumroll please, hope this really works, probably sounds fucking awful, sorry about that, Blue Exorcist. This chapter kicks so much ass. Just seeing, you know, everything come together. Just seeing the whole flashback, there's a whole lot of, like, forward progression here. We have the asylum is just super creepy, the ambiance works, Yuri's character, really digging it, Shiro and Mephisto have this great conversation, and then that Section 13 is all for Lucifer reveal blows open the whole thing. It's just a great chapter of a manga. It was a toss-up between this and Black Butler, because Black Butler was on a roll this month too. Black Butler lost because it was too short. That's literally why Butler lost. But it was really a toss-up between those 2. And yeah, so that's really all I have for this month's manga of the month. I know I do have an Angels of Death review to do. The notes on that are ready. It's just this video killed my voice, so I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm going to do it tomorrow night, probably. There'll be Angels of Death 5. But yeah, that's really all I have for this month's manga of the month. This is only barely shorter than the last one. I hope you're happy that Blue Exorcist won. If not, better luck next month. So anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!